Good morning. We are extremely pleased that you are here. It is good to come together for the purpose of co-creating. Do you agree? Yes. You are knowing what you are wanting. Are you appreciating how your desire continues to evolve? Yes. Even when you think you have everything right where it should be, and then something squirts out in a way that makes it clear that something is not right where it should be. This is what the evolution of all species is about. It's especially what the evolution of your species is about. New experience causing new desire, causing new expansion. But what this gathering is about is how well you keep up with your own expansion, because you can't stop the expansion. Life causes it. Life just keeps causing the expansion. But you do have choices all day, every day, about whether you go with the flow with the new, or whether you bind up in it, about how you feel about it afterward, whether you get all wadded up in the things that did not go the way you wanted them to, or whether you go with the flow and find some way to feel satisfaction anyway. Have you been listening to us for a little while? Yes. You have a sense of who you are, how you fit into the greater scheme of all of this. Do you know that you create your own reality? You do. You create your own reality, which sometimes makes you feel a responsibility that you don't want to consider. Sometimes it makes you feel free too. When something wonderful happens, Esther will say, I did that. I see my part in that. And when something not so wonderful happens, Esther says, I see my part in that. I did that too. Because in that acknowledgement of the vibrational matches that keep showing up for you, then you do have control. Because you have control, you may not know it, but you have control over the way you feel. No matter what's going on, you have control over the way you feel. And once you acknowledge that and accept it and then practice it, then what begins to happen is that even though things happen, they do, your response to them goes easier on you. And we would really like you to know that the only thing that isn't easy on you is you. Kind of hard to hear at first, but it really is the way that it is, and here's why. So here you are in your beautiful physical bodies. We see you. And in these bodies, you are an extension of source energy. And that source energy, that's who you really are. In other words, you have an inner being who is non-physically focused. An inner being who was you before you and your personality now were you. And here's the part we really want you to hear. And still is you, even though you is who you is here in your physical body. In other words, you have two primary and important points of attraction, points of attention, focus points, because there's your perspective as you stand here on planet Earth, and there's this perspective of your inner being. Now the optimum life experience is when, by virtue of what you do with your thought processes, you cause a blending between you and you. That's just the best that it can be for you. When you are focused in a way that you allow the whole of who you really are to flow through you moment by moment, then that's just the optimum life experience. That's living happily ever after. Your inner being is living happily ever after. So our desire in these conversations that we have together is to first help you to realize that you have two perspectives potentially, and that the better job you do of allowing your blending with your inner being, then the better life is and the happier you are. Your inner being is not making an effort to blend with you. Your inner being is pure positive energy. When you in your physical body are experiencing some contrast, and the contrast causes you to clearly know what you don't want, so you clearly know what you do want, what happens is you create a new reality that holds the new improvement. But you want to say but, we want to say and, you want to say but, we want to say and, you want to say but. It's a vibrational reality that you cannot see or hear or smell or taste or touch. It's not a reality that is manifested in a way that you can translate it through your physical senses yet. You can feel it, you can sense it, you can know it, you can understand it. So when life causes you to ask for something more, you evolve to that new beingness. Your inner being evolves to that new beingness. And here's the thing we really want you to hear. We have not said this clearly before. Your inner being has evolved to this new state of beingness and law of attraction. The law of attraction, the most powerful law in the universe, the law that manages all things vibrational, and all things are vibrational. The law of attraction responds then to that powerful point of attraction. So the only question is, what are you doing here in your physical body in relationship to this new desire that you just gave birth to and actually vibrationally did accomplish? Are you going with the flow of it? Do you believe it? Do you trust it? Are you anticipating it? Are you thinking about it? Or are you doubting it? Are you fearing it? Are you beating the drum of what went wrong? Because you have a choice in every moment of every day to lean in the direction of how your inner being feels about this and that, or to lean away from the direction of your inner being and how your inner being feels about this or that. These are your choices. You do not have the choice of separating yourself from your inner being so that your inner being's point of view is not part of the equation. You don't have that choice, because you cannot separate from who you are. Nor can you stop creating, nor can you stop living contrast, nor can you stop giving birth to new. You cannot stop evolving, and you cannot separate yourself from your evolution. How about that? You can just pinch yourself off and make yourself miserable because you're not going with the flow of your evolution. See what we're getting at? Do you? Is this on? So when you begin to realize that you have these choices and that they're easier than you have been making them out to be, because while law of attraction does get some momentum going, and we certainly acknowledge that when you get going on something that it affects you. Esther received an early morning phone call this morning. The girls who greeted you when you first came, none of the scanners are working. There's some kind of a electrical interference somewhere in the building. Scanners weren't working, so normal process for check-in had to be changed to something different. And when Esther got that phone call, she didn't like it very much. It was too late to do anything about it. It was too late to come down and reboot. She had some ideas, but by the time she got the phone call, you were all barking at the door. And so when the microphone went whack-a-doodle, Esther wasn't surprised, because she beat a sort of whack-a-doodle drum this morning for a little while. Called her IT guy in San Antonio. He didn't answer. She called his wife. She didn't answer. She called his 16-year-old son. He didn't answer. She called the 12-year-old son. He didn't answer. She rang the house phone. Nobody answered. Nobody answered the telephone. Then she called the IT guy that's supposed to sit in when the other IT guy isn't available. He didn't answer. And so, are you wondering why the microphone didn't work? We're not saying that in this moment Esther created this reality. We're saying you did it. Here's what we're really saying. Doesn't really matter, does it? Doesn't really matter how you got to where you are. The only thing that matters is where you go from here. Where you go from here. Where do you go from here? Some years ago, Jerry and Esther were driving in Orlando, and Esther was driving. She usually did, and Jerry was navigating, but he had been replaced by a navigational device in the car, and he wasn't very happy about it. The first one they got was Magellan. Esther called her Maggie. It was very personal. And Maggie was new to the job and made a lot of mistakes, and Jerry did not really like Maggie very much. She was sort of putting him out of navigational business. So one day they're in the car and Esther is listening to what Maggie says adoringly, and Jerry gets a smile on his face and says, you do know we're going in exactly the opposite direction of the way we need to be going. And Esther said, no, that can't possibly be. I did everything that Maggie said to do. And Jerry said, well, that may be, but I'm just telling you, you're headed in exactly the wrong direction. And Esther looked at the compass. She had to admit that Jerry was right. And then she said, I know, let's go back to the original place where we started from. I'll reprogram Maggie and I'll listen very carefully, and we'll figure out, did I make a mistake and not do something that she said? Did I miss a turn? Is the programming wrong? Is there something wrong with the programming? Then we'll know. And Jerry said, or we could just start right here where we are and go to where we want to be. And Esther thought that was a novel, while somewhat unsatisfying thing to do. Esther wanted to go back and figure out what went wrong. She wanted to know whose mistake it was. She felt defensive, not only of her, but of Maggie. And so that's really what we're talking about here, is that there are all kinds of positions that you may find yourself in that are less than the perfect one that you might be looking for. But if you're always looking forward and realizing that every time something goes a little wrong, that you ask with a stronger desire for the rightness of it, and that your inner being focuses on that, gives undivided attention to that, and offers a signal about that, that if you are not trying so hard to think your way through it, if you are instead feeling your way through it, you can find your way to where you want to be and have all kinds of fun and nice experiences along the way. So you were source energy. You came into this body and only part of you is in this body, but the larger part of you remains source energy. And these two parts of you are having a vibrational, therefore emotional relationship all the time. If you could accept this very important and actually easy concept as a premise of your life experience, things would begin getting better for you, even better for you, immediately. If you could just ask yourself the simple question many times in a day, am I in this moment feeling satisfaction or something less? Because if you're feeling satisfied, that means you're going with the flow of what you've lined out. If you feel less than satisfied, that means you've got a thought going on. A belief is just a thought that you continue to think. You've got a thought going on that is hindering, adding resistance to the desire that you've set into motion. It is our knowing that you are up to speed with what we just said to you, and it's pleasing to us as we speak these words and we feel your response to know that you're ready to start right where you are and move forward into some new ideas, into some clarification of some things that are important to you. So we're going to begin with you right now. What do you want to talk about? Do not worry, because we will wedge our message in the crack and we can feel among you what your desires of understanding are. So whether you are called forward to the hot seat or not, it is our absolute promise to you that we will address what you've come to know today. Our encouragement is that you relax and try to find that satisfying place of joining with your inner being and therefore understanding the conversations that we are having here today, because there's a potential of you accomplishing a whole new vibrational set point, which means every relationship you have with every other person, with every other being, with every other material object, with everything in your life, you have the potential of shifting enough that you will notice as soon as later today the improvement in your own point of attraction. So let's have some fun together. Yes.